I think one of the biggest mistakes we make in Age of Empire Mobile is actually a very simple one. We see a hero dominate and then we immediately assume the hero caused it. Honestly, I do it too. You watch a battle, you see one march deleting people, you see damage numbers flying, you see a hero surviving against multiple marches, and your brain instantly make conclusion, okay, that hero is broken. Seems logical. But after watching a lot of fights recently, I start thinking maybe we're giving heroes too much credit. Because I was watching Napoleon absolutely cooking people. And at first, I thought exactly what most players think. Napoleon is insane, Napoleon is overpowered, Napoleon is caring. But then I start asking myself a question. If Napoleon was the reason, why doesn't every Napoleon look like that? Because we're seeing it. One player's hero look unstoppable, another player's version of the same hero look average. Same hero, different results. So what changed? That's where the things get interesting because I think most players suddenly study outcome. Because I think some players study outcomes. They don't study condition. We see a victory screen, we see damage, we see kills, we see reports, and then we work backward. The hero won. Therefore, the hero caused the win. But what if that was the wrong conclusion? Because when I went back and looked at those fights, I started noticing things that had nothing to do with Napoleon. The first thing was target selection. And honestly, I think this get ignored all the time. Because not all damage is created equally. A hero hitting the perfect target looks completely different from a hero hitting the wrong target. And suddenly another question appear. How much of what we seeing is actually target quality, not hero quality? Think about it. Let's say two players use exactly the same hero. One spends the entire fight attacking favorite targets. The other one spends the entire fight and attacking unfavorable targets. At the end of the battle, their reports won't even look the same. So one look broken, the other one look weak. And yet, the hero never changed. Only the decisions change. That surprised me because I start wondering how many heroes we been overrated simply because they were fighting the right enemies. Then I noticed something else. The composition of the composition of the battlefield matter way more than the player think. When a hero look amazing, we immediately look at the hero. But maybe we should be looking at the battlefield. Because every battlefield has winners. And every battlefield has victims. There is quota zero. If somebody put a troop in the hospital, somebody else get credit for this troop that get put it in the hospital. Some players type some hero types thrive, some hero types struggle. Sometimes the environment is doing half the work, and honestly, I think players massively underestimating that. A fun example is when a lineup enters a battlefield that is full of favorite targets. Suddenly, everybody starts posting screenshots. Everybody starts talking about how insane the hero is. Everybody starts talking about buffs. Nerf this hero, meta changes. And then a week later, somebody copied the exact same lineup and get completely different results. Why? Because they copied the hero, but they didn't copy the environment. And those are two very different things. That's when I start thinking about investments because this is where the mistakes get expensive. If a player watches one amazing battle and decides to invest heavily into a hero, what exactly are they investing into? The hero or the conditions that create that result? Because if it's the condition, that's the dangerous investment. Condition change, matchup change, servers change, battlefield change, meta change, the hero stays the same. And honestly, I think a lot of heroes' disappointment comes from this. Not because the hero is bad, but because expectations were built from the wrong evidence. We all have done it. You see a monster report, you see a creator showcase, you see a whale deleting people, and suddenly you think, I need that hero. Then you unlock it, you build it, you use it, and it doesn't feel anything like on the video. Maybe the hero wasn't the difference, maybe the situation was. Then I start paying attention to support. And this is where the things get really weird. Because sometimes the strongest hero on the screen isn't actually operating alone. You just don't notice the help. Maybe another March is applying pressure. Maybe nobody is providing crowd control. Maybe somebody is generating opportunities. Maybe enemy attention is somewhere else. Maybe the hero is constantly getting favorable engagements. The point is, a hero can look like the star of a movie when somebody else is quietly reading the script. And I think that's what happened more often than the people realize. What surprised me most is how rarely players talk about this. We talk about the hero constantly. We talk about the talents. We talk about the gear. We talk about the horses. We talk about the stars. But we rarely talk about situation. And situation might be the biggest factor after all, because heroes don't fight in a vacuum. They fight inside environment, and environment can completely change the performance. Then I start noticing another pattern. The strongest player seems obsessed with conditions. The average player seems obsessed with the heroes. That's a huge difference. The average players ask what hero is winning. The strongest players ask, why is that hero winning? And those questions lead to completely different conclusions. One creates coping, the other creates understanding. Honestly, I think this applies to almost every hero discussed in the game, not just Napoleon. Every season we see the same thing. A hero dominates, the community reacts, players rush to conclusions, investments start happening, and then months later, people are confused. The hero wasn't terrible, the hero wasn't overpowered, the community simply misunderstood what was creating the result. Then things got even more interesting because I started wondering if some heroes are actually being blamed unfairly. 2. Think about it. If players give hero too much credits when things go well, don't they give heroes too much blame when the things go badly? A bad report doesn't automatically mean a bad hero. Just like a good report doesn't automatically mean a great hero. And suddenly you're looking at hero performance completely different. And the more I watch battles, the more convinced I become that the players often copy the visible things. The hero, the lineup, the reports, the damage. But the invisible things are usually what creates the results. The positioning, the target selection, the support, the timing, the environment. Those are things nobody screenshot. And those might be the things that matter the most. So when you see a hero absolutely destroying people in your next event, try something. Before deciding that the hero is broken, ask yourself one question. Was this hero winning because of the hero, or was this hero winning because everything around him was perfect? He was living in these perfect conditions. Because honestly, the more battles I watch, the more I think players are often giving credits to the wrong things. And that single mistake might be causing players a lot of resources, a lot of investments, and a lot of disappointments later on. Let me know what you think. Have you ever invested in the hero because of one amazing report, only to discover later that this situation was doing most of the work? Because I definitely have.